TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift's leading sire Malibu Moon, whose 2-year-old colt topped this week's Barrett's March Select sale at $675,000. Look for more top 2-year-olds selling at OBS April.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, last weekend we had 3 horses punch their ticket to this year's Kentucky Derby. Of course, I'm talking about the Spiral Stakes, the Sunland Derby, and the UAE Derby. Out of those 3 races, did anybody catch your eye?
You know, not really, John. I was sort of disappointed in the races. I mean, I didn't expect anything out of the Spiral. I mean, they ran an 82 buyer. You know, you saw Dr. Hansen get back in the Kentucky Derby, so I guess that's kind of exciting. Not the Kentucky guy we thought was going to get in the Derby. Ken Ramsey's horse was a little disappointing in there, but really wasn't a terrific race. You know, he might be the longest shot on the board in the Kentucky Derby, and that's fast and accurate. John holding on for the win in the Spiral with kind of a merry-go-round kind of race, and actually the fillies ran, I think, even a little faster than the colts did. So that kind of gives you an indication of that might not be the greatest prep. And then really the Sunland Derby, you know, same thing. The horse we liked in there, the long shot by Temple City, he's going to point for the Santa Anita Derby instead. They scratched out. And really once Bafford's horse showed that he couldn't handle the pace pressure and faded in their Bronze Age, I thought the race sort of fell apart. Hence took advantage. A nice little allowance horse at Oaklawn Park. Maybe you'll see him back in the Arkansas Derby or somewhere, but realistically not sure he's a Kentucky Derby contender. And then the UAE Derby, I thought was the race that you could see an emerging, you know, colt in. Thunder Snow was your morning line favorite, and he got the job done. He was the local horse. He's in great form, but, you know, I look at his action, John, and that pedigree, and it just screams turf to me. And I know that clay surface at Churchill sometime in the spring, it can lend itself to some turf horses. I mean, we can think of Patio Prado running well in there, some other horses that had more of a grass profile that fired in the Kentucky Derby. But when I look at Thunder Snow, you know, he's a horse that, you know, to me doesn't quite stack up to what I expect, you know, we could have gotten out of that race. And I thought the Japanese horse had every shot. Epicaris, a little disappointed in the way he finished as well. He was sort of the horse that I thought could maybe come out of it, or maybe even Master Plan, who I thought, you know, even though he was third in there, didn't have an impressive kick enough for me to think that he's a legitimate Derby contender either.
All right, well, it's going to be interesting with TCI Top 10. Doesn't sound like any of those winners are going to be on there. But you do have to make a change this week. You know, the filly was on there in number 10. She's come up with sore shins. I'm interested to see what you do with the TCI Top 10 going forward.
Well, hey, that change might have come regardless if she would have gotten hurt or not. And very unfortunate that Unique Bella goes to the sidelines, puts a real dent in at least the Kentucky Oaks picture. She was your prohibitive favorite. And here's Hollendorfer again, back-to-back years with a filly that would have been odds on. Now is not going to make the Kentucky Oaks. So very disappointing for her followers there. And it opens the Oaks picture up quite a bit. But she has to obviously come off the list. Like I said, John, she may have come off anyway. I'm going to throw Cloud Computing in there. He looks like this year's My Man Sam, horse that's been in Wintered, New York, where Chad Brown theoretically doesn't have his best horses, but has really come around. You know, they said this horse had some problems last year at Saratoga. He was the most expensive yearling by McLean's Music's first crop at Keeneland September, brought $200,000. Mike Ryan, very sharp horseman there. Love the stamina of the female family and love his 2 races. I mean, for Chad Brown to have this horse win first time out, wasn't the greatest maiden race, John, at Aqueduct, but again, to win first time out, for Chad Brown to bring you back on 3 weeks rest, and he had a trouble trip in his maiden race, track a pretty hot pace like we know that day with El Arib and the fact that it's set up for J-Boy's Echo. He still finished in just his second lifetime start. Now he's coming in with a good 4-week, a normal rest. Yeah, I think he has the upside, in my opinion, going into the Wood Memorial, that he could potentially punch his ticket there and be a top 10 Kentucky Derby contender. And again, beyond my top 8, I think what I said last week, I'm not real confident in the other 3-year-olds at the moment.
All right, well, let's talk about this weekend. We're now talking about 100-point races. I wanted to start off with the Louisiana Derby. You know, it's interesting, and here we see the Risen Star winner back in Gervin. But I wonder if any of these new horses that you think might test him, including a horse named Patch, who is a maiden winner, but it should be interesting to see what you think.
Well, I like that Todd Pletcher's shipping in. You know, we saw Motown sort of come in vulnerable off a layoff. But when Todd Pletcher sends his horses over, they usually fire, in my opinion. I think both these horses are going to be ready. Monaco, to me, in the mornings when I see his breeze on XBTV, he looks like he's moved forward with blinkers. I mean, here's a big son of Uncle Mo that, to me, is more of a cruiser type and mentally is figuring things out. Very disappointing in his Gulfstream Park race and really, frankly, his debut on Travers Day. He was a buzz 2-year-old last year at Saratoga, and he just hasn't put it together. But he's one that I think they're throwing it him to the Wolves a little too fast because I just don't think he's mentally there yet. But blinkers on, he could be a pace presence in here. And if they get him into a rhythm off the pace here, he's an interesting horse for Todd Pletcher because they've always felt the talent was there in Monaco. And you look at it and you'll see a 58 Beyer last time and you would think, well, wow, this horse has no shot, to run in Louisiana Derby. But I'm just telling you, there's talent there. So Monaco, while I don't like him quite to be ready this weekend, look out for the future with him. But I think Pletcher's other horse, John, Patch, I mean, if he can negotiate a good trip from the rail, the thing about Patch is he has a couple closers breaking to his outside, and that's Hollywood Handsome and Senior Investment, and I think Local Hero is going to go the lead. He's a speed horse there at Fairgrounds. That's going to open up a little pocket, I think, going into the first turn. They have a long run to the first turn at Fairgrounds. I think Patch and Tyler Gaffalione are going to be able to find a good tracking spot. If he can take the dirt in there and settle in that second flight, here's a horse that I think is doing fantastic. I actually thought he outworked Taprit on XBTV this past weekend, the Tampa Bay Derby winner. Wow. And again, he's by Union Rags. He's having an APNE mare that the second dam is a full sister to Banshee Breeze. So you want to talk about stamina in the family, all around top and bottom. And his furthest race has been a 1-turn mile. He should love a mile and 1/8. He has a turn of foot. So I'm interested to see how Patch runs because to me, John, when I look at this race, it's pretty weak top to bottom other than Gervin, horse we liked in the Risen Star. Gervin comes back in here. They enter a stablemate hot foot to make sure that somebody goes with Local Hero, make sure there's a legitimate pace, nobody gets away easy in here. Yeah. So I think there'll be a contested, legitimate pace to set it up for the horses coming from off the pace. And to me, those two horses are Patch trying to rally from the inside, and then Gervin, who's always sort of had that inside trip. He's going to have more of an outside trip in here, maybe not save as much ground. We'll see how Gervin can rally going to mile and 1/8. I think he's the horse to beat, and I think if there's a horse that can beat him, it's the upside of Patch going to mile and 1/8.
All right, well, let's go now then to the Florida Derby, Joel, another 100-point race here. We see a horse that you've really liked, and that's Gunnevera, is back in here. Joel, he ran huge last time out in the Fountain of Youth. But listen, it doesn't look like he scared anybody away. I mean, I look at this. There's a lot of horses running against him. There's obviously some people who think that they can take a shot at him.
Well, I liked Gunnevera, as you can recall, in the Fountain of Youth because I thought he got a raw deal in the Holy Bull. First race of the year, no pace to run at in that race. An Irish War Cry just crawled on the lead and went wire to wire. So we liked him in the Fountain of Youth. He got the pace in there, and he made him pay for it. He's a top-class colt, John. There's no doubt in my mind. When I look at him physically, he resembles that unbridled line, that big, leggy colt that to me is going to really be a finisher and love a classic distance. So he's a legit Kentucky Derby contender. My question for him is, they've been going on this, and he is so tough. He's a throwback. Right. He's a tough, honest colt. He brings his game every time. I mean, look, John, they've been running him since June when they went 5 furlongs at Gulfstream, and essentially he hasn't had a break. He ran a big race last time out. I didn't think his maintenance works coming up to this were quite as good as his works coming up to the Fountain of Youth. And to me, John, when I look, you just have to worry. I think he's going to show up, but you have to worry if maybe he's not quite as sharp now, and the fact that maybe all this racing is sort of taking its toll. And I hear that he's sort of light right now as a horse that, again, could maybe appreciate the 5 weeks after this race to sort of get back for a top effort in the Kentucky Derby. So don't be surprised if you don't see Gunnevera's best in here, particularly going into a short run to the first turn, and he's going to be in the 10-hole once Battalion Runner scratches out. He's not going to be able to fall out of the gate from the inside post and save ground while they go quick up front, like he did in the Fountain of Youth. He's actually going to lose some ground in this race, in my opinion, going into the first turn. Can his class overcome the fact that he will lose some ground over a track where speed usually holds? Not sure if the pace is going to be as quick in here. We'll have to see how it plays out. Big question marks for Gunnevera. But, John, all he has to do for me is come running, and he's honest enough. I think he's going to do that. And as long as he's on the board and looks like he does it the right way, he's still a top 5 contender without question in the Kentucky Derby because I know he'll like Churchill.
All right, well, there's some other things that are interesting in the Florida Derby before I let you go. We talked about that, everything that happened with the California form, with Mastery coming off, American Anthem not really running well in Arkansas. It makes that California form look a little vulnerable. And we thought there might be some horses that may scratch out of some of these East Coast races and ship out there and try to get the Santa Anita Derby. We're seeing that this week with Battalion Runner. He's going to now ship out and go into the Santa Anita Derby, which leaves it wide open for a horse that people have been really excited about, and that's Always Dreaming. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, Kimbear was the horse that I was talking about in the Sunland Derby that we kind of liked. He was 15-1, I think, on the morning line, running some key maiden races about Temple City. Connections there, Cruel Jack scratched out of the Sunland Derby and has instead recognized that, hey, my home track, big purse, grade 1, I'm going to take a shot there with Kim Barron, and probably the right move for a horse like that, not to have to ship him for that sort of opportunity. And you're right, you're seeing the same thing here with Battalion Runner, who may wind up being your favorite. Depends how the California money respects him coming over from Florida, but Battalion Runner is an up-and-coming colt. I mean, we got him in the top 5 of our Derby top 10. I think he's a cruiser. He's a big son of a bridal song. Should run forever, John. Not so sure he's got a turn of foot. I think he's going to be a horse that's going to be very forwardly placed in his race. He's just going to continue to power on like a lot of these good unbridled songs do that we've seen in the past. So you're going to see Battalion Runner scratch out of here, and the only reason they entered him was for an insurance policy in case they didn't like where Always Dream. Like say Always Dream would have entered and would have got the 12 hole in a 12, 13 horse field or whatever. Right. Short run and turn, perhaps they would have scratched him and pointed for something else, but they've always pointed Always Dreaming for this. He's a horse that, if you look at that last race, we talked about it, 71 Beyer, you would laugh and say this horse has no shot to win the Florida Derby. I'm not sure if there's ever been a horse that's run that slow in his next start come back and win the Florida Derby. But he's much better than that. He literally only ran for a 16th of a mile in his last prep. They didn't even ask him for gallop out. His 2 works since then for Todd Pletcher have been lights out. Monster gallop outs, outworking his competition, doing it easily. The talent and upside is with Always Dreaming, John. I think he's going to stalk your pace setter in here, which is going to be 3 rules and probably State of Honor. Even with the blinkers off, breaking from the rail, they got to go with him. I think it's going to be maybe a moderate pace, and I see Always Dreaming stalking them with the target. Here's a horse with a turn of foot. I think you could see him pour it on in the stretch. I think he's an exciting up-and-coming colt.
All right, well, thank you, Joel. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap the Louisiana Derby and the Florida Derby.